I welcome you all to the podcast on U.S. India Operational Cooperation. It is my pleasure to invite our guest speaker today, Admiral Karambir Singh, recipient of Param Vishesh Seva Medal, Ati Vishesh Seva Medal, Aide Camp, and Anomalous of National Defence Academy, who served as the 24th Chief of Naval Staff. At the Integrated Headquarters Ministry of Defence Navy, the Admiral served as the Deputy Chief of Naval Staff and subsequently the Vice Chief of Naval Staff. He was the Flag Officer Commanding in Chief, Eastern Naval Command at Visakhapatnam. A very warm welcome to Christ University.
Thank you, Kriti.
So, sir, let me begin by asking you the first question. What is your perspective? What is the Indian perspective, or how do Indians view the operational cooperation between US and India?
Thank you for your question. I'll answer it in a different fashion. I'll talk to you from the military perspective, the U.S. India military perspective, and I'll start by saying that this U.S. India military operational collaboration is not taking place in isolation. It is part of a very vibrant, it's a strong pillar of a very vibrant country to country interaction and connect and an engagement. You must be aware that as far as the country to country cooperation is concerned, there are about 50 bilateral dialogues that we hold. There are 5 or 6 apex level meetings. There's a 2+2 ministerial meetings. Have got a good start point from where we are taking off, and we have the higher level agreement on how we should proceed, and that is reflected in our defense cooperation. And if you look at defense cooperation itself, we are looking at a very vertically different levels and horizontally quite a multifaceted cooperation involving technology transfer. We had the DTTI, then of course we had the ISET, the INDUSEX. All these are helping India move up the food chain as far as the technological prowess is concerned. We have training wherein a lot of our officers and personnel are trained in the US. We have logistics agreements, something like the LIMOA, logistics memorandum of agreement, the master ship repair agreement, wherein US ships come here and get repaired. We have a very close information sharing mechanism between us, and of course we are involved in capacity building, exercises and operations. And you must be aware that our two countries have signed the 4 foundation agreements. That is the foundation on which a lot of our cooperation collaboration rests. Specifically from the naval point of view, Indian Navy does more exercises with the US Navy than it does with anybody else, any other navy in the world. And like I said, they are multifaceted and multi-layered. If you look at vertically, starting right from the top at the apex level of the naval leadership, we have interactions, and right down to the young officer and enlisted personnel. And it is multifaceted, like I explained to you, involving technology and training, logistics, information sharing, operations and exercises. And what do we gain from this as an Indian? We pick up best practices. When we have subject matter exchanges, expert exchanges, we know that the US has invested a lot of time and effort and thought into this particular field. So our interactions, we gain a lot from the subject matter experts. We gain a lot from exercises. We're doing so many exercises, whether it's bilateral, minilateral, multilateral, like Malabar, Rimpak, Milan, Tiger Triumph, etc. And of course, we also gain from the track 1.5, track 2, the professional military education. That means the institutions also talk to each other. So I think I think even the ILOs that have been put into our IFC IOR International Fusion Center of Indian Ocean region by the US, and our ILOs that have gone into the Indo-PACOM, the commands, the SOCOM, and the Coalition Maritime Forces. This is going to help us so that we are able to act in any contingencies in a sort of integrated fashion. So I think lots is happening, and we in India look at this relationship as a very substantial one. It is based on mutual respect, and one that will continue to grow as trust and interoperability ramps up.
Thank you, sir. Sir, on this note, what are the other points of convergences you see in this relationship?
There are several points of convergence. When we talk of the Indo-Pacific, if you look at several countries and groupings have issued their Indo-Pacific strategies. India's Indo-Pacific strategy is basically SAGAR, security and growth for all in the region. So when you look at the larger requirements or the aims of the strategies, all the strategies, especially the U.S. and India, there's a lot of convergence. We basically understand that, first of all, there is a fairly common understanding of what it is to keep the seas free, open and inclusive. Both countries have mentioned this in their strategies, and therefore it's very easy for us to work together because we have a sort of common strategic aim. So that is the first point of convergence, is the higher this thing. So when we realize that there are conventional threats, there are countries, groupings that are inimical to free, open and inclusive Indo-Pacific. There are threats which are non-traditional in terms of piracy, drug running, arms, IUU fishing. All these affect. There are connections between drugs, arms, terrorism. We understand that. We understand that IUU fishing can lead to instability in the countries that are affected. So there's a common understanding on that. There's convergence that we must work together to, first of all, understand what is happening and then to respond to what's happening. So that is a big point of convergence. We also understand that this free, open and Indo-Pacific is an essential requirement and has contributed to global prosperity, because most of our countries, 95%, to the tune of 95% of the trade by volume takes place through the seas and oceans. If you can't keep that open, then we are going to have a problem with every country. And therefore, when we look at free, open and inclusive Indo-Pacific, we are actually working together as navies to provide public goods. If you ensure maritime security, you ensure prosperity and global trade, which goes unhindered. So I think that is the biggest point of convergence that I can think of, and that leads to follow on issues that how do we curate our exercises, how do we do our subject matter expert exchanges. We have climate change that is going on. We all understand that climate change is going to have very, very serious effects. The rising sea levels are going to create problems for all countries, and especially there are certain countries which are very vulnerable, like the Maldives, Bangladesh, even parts of India. So how do we act? Because once you have rising sea levels, you have repercussions, you have human migration, you have instability. How do you act together? So there is a convergence on the larger principles, and therefore when we operate together, it becomes that much easier to plan, to make SOPs and work together. As far as the higher end conflicts are concerned, that is another area where we have convergence, because we understand that there are certain countries that are inimical to global prosperity and who want to change. For example, if you talk of China, it wants to change the whole idea of free, open seas to contested seas, as what they're doing in South China Sea. We don't want that replicated, and we should be able to meet this challenge also. It's not only the non-traditional challenges. So I think these are the points of convergence that help us work together.
Thank you so much, sir. So with a lot of positivity which we see between India-US relationships in a lot of domains, but what are the challenges that you see in the domain, like you said, from a military point of view, military operational point of view? What are the challenges that both the countries are facing?
Actually, I'm one of those positive guys. I mean, I mostly see challenges also as opportunities, because the beauty of being at sea is that there are no borders.
Correct. Yes.
We whilst the borders divide, the seas unite. So there are pinpricks. There will be pinpricks in our relationship caused by a lot of geopolitical strife that is going on. But I think both US and India have very, very consciously taken a long-term view of this, and we are not letting small little, we cannot say small little, but there are certain serious problems, but we're not letting that interfere in our. So there are challenges, but the long-term thinking and the long-term goal in our relationship is pretty clear. So it's easier for us to, not overlook, but make sure that we don't let this completely upset our relationship. What I feel as a challenge is, one is that we need more ambition, both from the US side and the Indian side, and we need to drop these hesitations of the past. When our Prime Minister addressed the US Congress, he mentioned that both countries have dropped the hesitations of the past. But I still see remnants of that in both in the Indian thinking and in the US thinking. So that is one challenge that we have to overcome by looking at the long term and the kind of advantages that I've just explained to you. Other than that, there are a few issues that we need to work more on. I would not say there are challenges, yes, but there are opportunities. Like, for example, our interoperability. Today, the navies are heavily dependent on being able to network together. So that is a bit of an issue. It requires a little more give and take, more give than take, and a lot of trust ballast. So that is one thing that we require, and we are working. Both sides are working. There are technology is not a problem in interoperability. It is just the matter of the trust. So if that ramps up and we are able to push through that, then we will be able to interoperate, and especially when I talk of these high-end scenarios, we'll be able to do a much better job. So that is one a kind of a key result area that both the navies are pushing. By the way, navies normally don't have problems. We've got this. We have built keel upwards for cooperation or collaboration. Because all our lives we've been meeting each other at sea. We have a common outlook. We know that the oceans are too vast for any person to do it alone, and too complex. So the problems are not in the navies. It is at a higher plane. The second is, of course, the challenge is that the underwater. When we talk about maritime domain awareness, it includes the air, the sea, and the underwater. The underwater domain awareness is a big challenge, not because of the US and India not being able to work together, but because the environment itself is so complex, and it involves a lot of working together. So that is one area where I think that's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity to work much closer together to understand this very complicated realm of underwater domain. I mean, for a person who's on land, they may not be able to understand the entire complications of what happens in the oceans. There are ocean currents, there are ridges. It's almost an underwater topography. There are mountains underwater, there are valleys underwater. It's like operating an infantry officer operating on the land border. Right. So that is one area. And the last area where I think it's a challenge and we cannot ignore it is in the realm of technology transfers. US has invested a lot of time, money, and effort to be the technology leaders in the world. There are IPR considerations. There is a lot of money sunk into it. Therefore, there is rightly reluctance to share high-end technology. India, on the other hand, has adopted this thing of Atmanirbhar Bharat, wherein in defense, I think it has got a little confused. Rather than Atmanirbhar being self-reliance, where you actually become an integral part or a critical part of the global supply chain, we have sought to close everything from outside and try to build everything ourselves. This, I think, is inimical to this whole game of technology transfers, and And last, of course, is the worry that the U.S. side has on the seepage of technology to other countries and entities. So this is one area where we really have to work hard, and if we want to go up in when we look at U.S. India common or combined power, this is an area which we really have to work on.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for bringing forth and comprehensively all the challenges and the opportunities. And on this very positive note and optimistic note between this relationship, thank you so much again, sir. It was our pleasure to have you. And I'm sure the audience will really benefit by your inputs and your expertise on this very relevant topic.
Thank you,
so
Kriti.
much.
Thank you for asking all the right questions, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to.
No, sir, a pleasure is completely ours. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.